So I just want to share your papers with you, some interesting papers. We had a bunch do title insurance this time. I'm not sure why I picked that one. That was interesting. So I'll just give you a few quotes, and y'all, those that wrote the paper, if you want to add some to it. I'm not a blockchain person. I don't fully understand it. I've listened to so many podcasts, and it still is not clicking with me. There's some things I just have NFTs even more so. Sorry, Jacob. It just isn't sinking into me why people are spending $60,000 on this stuff. I'm sure there's something there I'm just missing. But blockchain for insurance, the main thing here is there another way we can collect information, a safer, more efficient way. So data-driven blockchains allow for decreased manual labor and lower transaction costs by giving more transparent data on customers and improving pricing of premiums. Blockchain can also be effective in prevention of fraud, utilizing data from multiple sources beyond internal knowledge. An insurer can easily obtain telematic data from a person's car, view police records, and the repair history. Insurance-only blockchain is projected to improve the P&C claim settlement process through its efficiency over the traditional. I just don't know if I, as a consumer, are going to notice it. To me, a lot of this is going to be in the software, and it's just, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to go, oh, wow, we're on the blockchain. It's just, to me, it's just going to be part of a new way of programming. This is achieved through smart contracts, a tool intimately tied with the blockchain. These are contracts that can have agreed upon stipulations between the insured and insurers and exclusively between insurers. They automate operational activities, decreasing the time it takes to verify and approve claims. So, yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, already you got your phone, you have an accident, you take a picture, send it to the insurer. Most insurance companies have an application that you can just plug in and send to them. How this would be better, I'm not sure. USA is listed as one of the ones that's kind of leading the edge here. USA State Farm have worked together to create a blockchain between the two companies that improves the efficiency of subrogation claims, proving concept and moving the adoption of this technology further. That sounds great. I still don't know what it means because I don't understand blockchains, how that's any different than any other connection. But then we had a few articles on car technology, and most of them were the technology is making driving safer and the technology is making driving more dangerous. So I kind of combine these in here. I don't know, the blockchain person want to make any comments? I'm not saying I got your best quotes. I don't remember who wrote what paper either of those. So here I like the way they summarize it. Front automatic engineered emergency braking. I'm not so sure about that. My car, first time I did that, it just shocked me. The word brake in all red letters came up and it almost made me crash because I was like, wait, what is that? What's going on here? So at least now I know that it's there. It's not just how close I am, but it's where the thing is and how fast I'm going. So it has a lot more intelligence to it other than you're 2 inches away. So if you're 2 inches away, but you're not moving very fast, it doesn't do much. But if you're 50 yards away and you're going 80 miles an hour, it does.
Do cars with that kind of technology have lower premiums on?
Well, that's what this article is talking about. I think a lot of it is, yes, when the proof is there, but some of this doesn't have enough time to know. You know, Tesla is a good example because Tesla has everything in it. So is Tesla safer or is it more distracting? I've never driven a Tesla, probably never will. It's hard for me to say. I think my car is a little bit more distracted because it has a screen in front. There's not any entertainment going on. I can't watch videos or anything, but there is more stuff going on. And one thing that bugs me with my car is these buttons I didn't know exist. I had to watch a Google video, a YouTube video to figure out how to change the clock on my phone, my car. And then once I figured out there's this button that does like 80 other things. And once I found that, I'm like distracted. I'm like, wow, it also does this, it does this. That's pretty cool.
A quote that I didn't put in there was similar to that. He was saying how confusing everything's named and how people don't even know what their cars do.
Right.
And he was saying that they actually held a class that taught people what their cars are doing, and it increased the crashes and stuff.
Totally.
So it's like,
Yeah, my car has this button on the, I forget what the picture of it is, but it has no logic with anything. You never look at that button and say, oh, there's where everything is. That button had all the power. I'd never hit it before. I was going through it. It has one where it shows you what direction you're going in, tells you what street you're on and what the speed limit of the street is. And it's right about 90% of the time. It's not always right. So I'm not going to like trust it and go 70 when it says, but that was great. I like knowing if I'm going north or south. It took me a while to figure out the compass, but I didn't know that wasn't even on my car, but now that's something else I can look at. It's kind of nice to know what street I'm on and what the speed limit is. So that certainly helps. Blind spot warnings. I don't have that. Any of y'all have that on your cars? Yeah.
What year is it?
It's 19 or 18.
Are you talking about like on the side mirror where the light comes on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a noise or if it's a warning.
It's a-
It's a little light.
Yeah, on your-
I might have it. I just haven't noticed
Have
it.
you ever passed a car while you're passing them, their side mirror, the light that comes on, like on?
I haven't noticed that.
Yeah, I think that's-
Yeah, I don't think I have that. Mine tells me when I'm going out of the lane, and it irritates me because it does it all the time.
Because I will start to do it for my own son.
Rear cross traffic warning. I'm not sure what that means. Rear auto emergency braking.
It's like the beeping where there's like something behind your car.
Hmm. Oh, when you're backing up. Automatic high beam, and I've heard this one. They're talking about there's people that just don't use their high beams. I know people that don't turn their high beams off, which I found even more irritating. I was doing a cross-country trip with a bunch of people, and the guy driving I was like, turn your lights off, turn your lights off, turn your lights off, and he just wasn't paying attention. Hand-free Bluetooth phone calls. I don't know, hand-free calls are still distracting. And there's some evidence they're just as distracting as having one in your hand. So who knows? We really, when we're driving, we should just be driving. I turn my phone off and put it down when I'm driving. I don't, airplane mode, and it's sitting over there, so I can't get to it. Head-up display systems and in-vehicle information. And this sounds like disaster. I've seen cars with videos for their kids far enough up that the driver could watch as well. That seems to me pretty dangerous. I like watching videos where I can just hear them. I don't need to actually see the video itself. And so that's fine. Institute study found that systems with forward collision warning, automatic braking, cut rear. So Mitch, this is your comment. Cut crashes in half, while forward collision warning alone reduces them by 27%. Reduction from backing crashes is reduced 22%, whereas the rear view cameras reduce 17. So whatever the system that I don't have, I do have the rear view cameras. I don't think they're all that valuable to me. I still turn my head and look. Especially backing in a drive, I just can't get between the two. I'm just a terrible backup driver. So I prefer to turn my body and look. The alert system is great. The more significant technological development is the rear braking technology. This brakes the car when there is a suspected impact. Any of y'all have that? I mean, is there a scenario where it does that and actually causes you more harm? Maybe you're backing up because a tree's falling on your car and you'd rather hit, whatever, a suitcase behind you than have the tree fall on you. What's the case there? It is stated that to have dropped them by staggering 78% with the alerts system spoken about earlier. Obviously, those most tragic things where someone runs over a child or a pet, obviously that's the thing you're looking out for. It'd be good that we go and look every time we go to drive, look behind our cars, but we just forget to do that. Blind spot warning reduces lane change crashes by 14%. That would be very valuable. People who change lanes without looking. Automatic high beams and other headlight related advancements like curve. Yeah, these curve adapted lights, I've never had that. My fear with that is if people have that, then they don't slow down on curves. There's a thing where it can actually make things more dangerous. Oh, I can see around the curve, so now I can go 50 miles an hour around the curve. I just slow down if it's at nighttime, but automatic, some cars we tested had over 200 multi-function buttons. one or more touchscreens, voice commands, head-up displays. The modern car looks like a jet fighter with all displays. Some cars even allow you to play games on the screen while you're driving. That should be illegal. The majority of car manufacturers aim to meet the requirements of level 3. Autonomous vehicles are able to control speed and steering programmatically. They rely on the human driver to take over in dynamic situations, such as when bad weather, which may interfere with the car's sensors. In addition to real-time monitoring and braking, cars will require artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, and other technologies. So we actually have these levels. So I don't know what level my car is. I doubt it's level 3. It can't do anything by itself. Although I do, I think I told you about that. I do find the cruise control pretty amazing, that it slows down. I think that's pretty amazing, and it does a pretty good job. I used to think, I thought I'd read some point that cruise control absolutely will not put on the brakes. My car is definitely putting on the brakes. There's no question that it's slowing down a lot more than just coasting. And I thought that wasn't allowed. I didn't think cruise could actually just depress the brakes. I don't know if it's braking, if it's actually the brake lights are going on. Anybody know that? I mean, it must be, right? You would think it would. Because if you're slowing down pretty dramatically, you'd want the person behind to know, but I don't know because I'm driving. According to Forbes, drivers insured with GPS tracking premium get into fewer accidents, a 20% reduction by some. GPS tracking systems installed at either their phones or device reduce their speed dramatically when they were promised. So we are incentivized. We were talking about telematics earlier. Yeah, I need to get it on my car, but USAA doesn't really push it. So one of these days I'll remember and call them and see if I need to call them anyway. So maybe next call I'll ask that as well. Yeah, cars are getting quite complex. So how close are the autonomous vehicles? Tesla's getting some pretty bad press. Their drivers just, taking a nap. So it obviously the technology works because people are doing that. It obviously doesn't work perfectly because people are getting in wrecks. I do think about the time where I can, drive to Dallas at 2 a.m. and just sleep in the back seat.
Talking about Tesla, I know Elon Musk is coming up. He's pretty adamant that most of the crashes have to deal with the person driving, due to their errors.
Yeah, when they took over.
I mean, he said some of them might have been caused by the technology, but that there's still more.
Right.
They're safer than human error.
That's what the math says. They went a long time. I think Google said it went like 1 million miles without a crash. And then they had a couple kind of suddenly come up. And they did have crashes. The only time they had crashes was when a human driver was driving the autonomous vehicle. That's the wonderful thing about this is that we have data. And the data is going to improve it. I think the fear some of y'all talk about on the cybersecurity is what's going to happen when all these cars are tied to each other, and what's that going to do to our risk. Civil disorder, obviously, Floyd in 2020 with what all happened with protests and some pretty significant destruction to property. Are you covered? Our business is covered, is homeowner covered. So a civil disturbance is a large-scale public gathering that disturbs the peace and leads to property damage. So there has to be property damage. This public gathering is usually a result of an uprising or riot. These riots result in fires to vehicles and buildings, breaking windows, looting, vandalizing. The majority of standard insurance policies protect you from losses and damages due to civil disorders. I think some of it is the people are there to actually don't care about the issue. They're just out there to have fun. I think you attract, people that are just hey, this is free for all. Let's go for it. The death of George Floyd in Minneapolis police custody sparked significant number of protests and riots across the United States. The civil unrest led to acts of violence and destruction, a breakout in 140 cities. So $2 billion in losses in 20 cities. U.S. civil disorder surpassed the 1992 Los Angeles. Y'all probably don't remember those. Y'all probably weren't alive then. I think that was the Rodney King ones, I guess, right? Yeah, if y'all ever heard of Rodney King? Yeah. He's still well known. I think he passed away a few years ago. So that was an interesting case because that was before phones and cam. And you should see the story of the guy who had that video, because he shares it. His life was ruined because he shared that video. He didn't even realize, I don't think he really realized he had it. He just happened to have a video camera he could see going on, so he decided to video it. And boy, you should read his story. I think NPR had a story on that. That is a loss. That's not a massive, massive, massive loss. USAA by themselves could have a $2 billion loss just on homeowners insurance. So this isn't a major catastrophe. I don't even think that gets to the category of being a catastrophe. So, but for you as a homeowner, most of the damage I think was to businesses, not to homeowners. So, it's something to think about. The Property Claim Service is identified more than 20 states with a significant insurance industry impact. All right, someone updated, this one gave me some good idea for updating the study. So the FTC did do a study, and there have been some other studies on credit scores, so that's interesting. I'll have to look at their link and see if I can bring that study in. Telematics point. So this article made a really good point. We were talking earlier, telematics might make credit scores irrelevant. Because what's the goal of credit scores? To figure out if you're a good driver or not. If telematics tells you, then is credit scores really going to tell you, yeah, you're a really bad driver on telematics and you got a bad credit score, that makes you even worse driver. I mean, it seems like you're going to pick that up either way. So this may be changing. That's probably good for the industry. They got better information, and it's going to be hard for a driver to complain about telematics. They can complain about credit scores, but it is the way you drive. You might say, wow, speeding and fast harsh braking, that shouldn't give me higher premiums, but you're going to have a tough time with that argument. Cyber risk. That is the big one. This is still being talked about. I think it's still being talked about because I think we're still waiting, kind of like the earthquake in California. We're still waiting for the big one. I'm actually amazed at, Iran is doing this to other countries. Russia's doing this to other countries. Ukraine's doing it. The US is doing it. Israel is doing this. Every country is doing this. And I get the impression this is really pretty easy. Cyber hacking is like a really easy thing to do because everybody's doing it and they're doing it all over the place. So how bad could this get? And if you're a terrorist, you want to do a lot of harm. Someone's going to get creative and think of something we never thought of before. And so how much damage could they do? I think probably the biggest one people are trying to do is shut down the utilities. If you could shut down all the utilities on the East Coast during the summer, during the winter, that would be a pretty freaky event in the United States. Shut down our economy for sure. And how long would it take for them to fix that and get back up and running? So I don't think we've really seen the big one yet. The average coverage per incident to the business is $416,000. This figure comes from credit monitoring from both affected and unaffected customers, fines, penalties, lost income, public relations. These costs have driven cyber insurance premiums to rise 28%. This results in a huge barrier to entry for small businesses that can't afford the necessary protections. Unfortunately, due to the large number of ransomware attacks, I've gotten fake ransomware emails before. They're kind of humorous. You think they would at least go through a spell checker. They don't even do that. Numerous insurers have capped how much they will reimburse. In some cases, outright stopped reimbursements. This may be because e-criminals prefer the target companies that are insured, since they are twice as likely to pay ransoms compared to uninsured. Hackers have also found out how much coverage the company has. I'm amazed it's this easy. They're not just hacking the person that they're going to do the ransomware on, they're also hacking their insurance company. It just seems crazy to me. Another concern many insurers worry about is a looming fear of cyber hurricanes. So that's what we're talking about, which is just unprecedented number of claims. So barrier. So this is kind of like the flood insurance. Is there a case out there that's too large for the industry to actually handle? Anything to add on that? Yeah, I think that was yours, Adrian. Dash cams. I don't have a dash cam. I keep thinking about it. I know one of these days I'm going to say, boy, I wish I had one. I've had sometimes on my bike where I wish I had one because a squirrel run in front of me is like the perfect. There was one time I was riding my bike going down the hill and like 13 wild pigs run across the road. And they all go over and I think they're gone. And then this little piglet comes at the very end squeaking. I thought, wow, that would have been a great video, but I didn't have my camera going. I mean, perfect. They were massive. And then the little bitty one at the end, I'm sure probably didn't survive much longer. So, I mean, it'd be nice to have dash cams. I don't know exactly how they work. So you're driving along and something happens. I assume you hit a button that says save this. And it saves what, like the last 30 minutes? Anybody know? Anybody have a dash cam?
It's like that. Where you click a button, it saves the last hour.
You set it up how much you want to do.
It's usually preset up, depending on the storage.
Yeah, because it's, you don't want to keep all of this stuff. It's going to be a waste of space. Does it keep it like on a phone or does it in the
It's like
cloud?
a built-in hard drive. I think Tesla has its own built-in cameras, so it stores it.
And it's pretty easy. Hit the button. You just hit the button and it says keep.
Yeah, for the portable ones, yeah.
I wonder if it keeps what you have the last 10 minutes and then it keeps recording maybe the next 5 or something. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I've been tempted to get one. I mean, it gives you great videos. I mean, it's amazing how many car crashes have been captured, and you know, it's pretty amazing. I don't know what a dash cam for $25 would actually be. I do have a GoPro, and I haven't used it too much. I took one for a bike ride in California, and I had some great views, and then it fell off and broke, and I'd lost everything. So that one-time charge can alleviate the hassle of having to prove yourself. So they're talking about how do you prove yourself from kind of fraudulent claim or someone who says, you know, you hit me, those kind of things. Drivers with dash cams have successfully recorded footage of many types of scams. I mean, some of these scams are pretty ridiculously bad. You've probably seen them. You know, the guy jumps on your hood. And it's just like, yeah, come on, give me a break. And they're pointing to their dash cam. I have a dash cam. It's like, oh, forget it. So crash for cash or flash for cash. Some people are like pulling in front of an 18-wheeler and slamming on the brakes. These are people like they're willing to risk their life for a few $1,000s. It's kind of crazy. Most electric cars have built-in dash cams recording whenever the AI sensor captures any movement. There's some pretty interesting videos on that. I saw one of a lady was skiing a Tesla. She just didn't like the fact that this expensive car was sitting next to her not so expensive car, so she decided just to key it, and she didn't realize the expensive car had a video of her doing that. So what do dash cams do? Make you a better driver. Evidence in case of a car accident. I don't know who wrote that, why this makes you a better driver. Anybody have the argument for that? Why does having dash cam make you a better driver?
You don't rear end somebody because you know it's gonna be like on your.
Yeah, so you could basically have evidence against yourself.
Yeah.
If you tell your.
Oh, so you drive better?
Dash cam, you're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna subpoena the dash cam and see if you're gonna.
Oh, so I shouldn't cut this guy off because if I cause a wreck, I'm gonna have a dash cam. Okay, that's, I don't know if I would think like that, but okay.
Yes.
For the camera, the dash cam has been subpoenaed.
Take the dash cam, just chuck it.
Well, I guess if something did happen, you destroyed it with the initiative. Records bad drivers, can prevent fraud, can challenge a traffic ticket. I have seen that. There's a really famous one out there. This lady got a ticket for not wearing her seatbelt, and it's quite obvious in the dash cam. She had her seatbelt on. She just automatically took it off when she stopped, and she told and the police officer was very rude. But she had everything on dash cam, and yeah, he ended up. But still, I mean, that's the kind of thing that frustrates me with, you know, some police officers say, well, you can just take it to court. I said, okay, that's 4 hours, 5 hours of my time. That's a hassle. I don't want to go to court. That's what I was telling one. He was telling me the speed limit's 20. I said, no, it's 30. He says, no, it's 20. The sign there says it's 20. So I go to the sign, it doesn't say that. So I stop in and say, well, there's another sign that says all the streets are 20. I said, well, show me. So I follow him to that sign. It doesn't say that. It says, well, you can just take it to court. It's like, no, you don't get it. I don't want to go to court. That's hours of my time. It was so irritating. He kept telling me the sign says it, that sign says it. none of the signs said it. All right, so again, about the features in car manufacturing companies must balance the safety and the appeals. So we want high tech, but if high tech makes us more dangerous drivers, touchscreen tends to make functions more complex. You generally must go through more menus, thus pressing the screen. You're spending more time with your eyes off the road. According to ALA Connect, in-vehicle touchscreens are significantly more dangerous than a phone's touchscreen. Now this one I thought was interesting. Glass shattering tool intended for when a car is on fire, just imagine. So this new glass that's supposed to protect you from shattering, then you get into the river and you're underwater and you can't get out because the glass is so strong you can't break the glass. So, that's what our industry does. They're trying to figure out, hey, we solved this problem, we created this problem. I think I saw a video of a lady who was in a car that was filling with water and she couldn't break the glass because of that. And it was very interesting because the fireman gets there, he breaks the glass, gets her out, but his foot is stuck in the tree. And so now they're trying to rescue him while the water is rising. It was a pretty tense because this guy okay, guys, because they're all like celebrating they got her out. And he's like, hey guys, wait, I'm still down here and I can't leave. Oh, wait, Bob's still down there. Wait, let's go back then and rescue Bob. Huh?
Oh, I know, I don't know, but hopefully it's safe, but you, as soon as you get in, if you just start rolling down your windows, it should work. Like that, I saw a couple of safety videos on it, and it was like a real controlled scenario. They had like paramedics and everybody. But as soon as like your car starts getting submerged, you can still roll down the windows.
Yeah, that's part of the issue is when does the electricity in car stop functioning? So you gotta move pretty fast. I mean, if you're panicked, you're not thinking right. This was I wish I could find that video. A lady, she was calling her car, she was in the water, the car was filling up really fast, and they don't know where she is. And she's calling, and the call is just, I mean, she's freaking out because the water is rising. And I think she at one point says, I can see the lights or something like that. And they're trying to find her. So they finally find her and they find her just in time. And then this guy gets his foot caught in a tree. It was a very, very intense video, but everybody survives. There was, nothing happened. So here, the risk of being trapped in a vehicle is likely too low in frequency. And that's the other thing you got to think about from this. You might have a safety that protects you here, but makes it more dangerous here. But this only happens 0.01% of the time. There are times where they'll say, hey, we're going to risk that. It's a lower frequency in order to, prevent this. That's possible. Huh?
I was thinking, you think it wouldn't be like that expensive to just add a little manual? Because like my old truck used to have to.
Yeah.
Crank it.
When we say roll down a window, it doesn't make any sense today. Yeah.
Well, the Mythbusters, like 10, 15 years ago, they did a video on if you wait until you're fully underwater, you can very easily open the door.
Oh, really? The pressure is.
But if you try to open it while the water's coming in, you can't get the door.
Yeah, it's too heavy. Wow. All else equal, car color complaint. We talked about this. This one's pretty close to what I told you. I told you yellow is the best color. I think this one kind of says that. Can play as much as a 12% difference in frequency. Black, gray, white, blue, green, brown. White cars are 12% less likely to get in an accident than black cars, regardless of the time of day. Cream, yellow, beige cars also rank closely behind white. Yellow actually surpass white in some studies, so that's probably the study I showed y'all. Black, which ranked as most dangerous. Other colors are gray, silver, blue, and red. It's kind of surprising red. I think anything that kind of somewhat blends in with either the background or with the road color, you just don't see it. 12%, you're talking about something that's probably going to happen to you less than 1% of the time, and you're reducing that by 12%. It's unlikely it's actually going to save you, but you are talking about your life and your bodies. A yellow car, I don't like yellow cars. Some of y'all probably have yellow cars. I don't really like yellow cars, but it gives you a 12% chance. I don't like white cars either. I bought into the argument that white cars don't show dirt because most dust is white. That's absolutely not true. They get just as dirty as everything else. And this is the one I really thought was, this was a big debate we had at USAA is OEM. They're on average 60% more expensive. And there are some people that demand, I want the parts that were in this car. And we were talking about like Tesla owners. Hey, give me the Tesla part. I don't want some secondhand part. Insurers claim that the use of aftermarket parts is in both the insured's and the insurer's interest because the sole use of OEM parts creates a monopoly with the manufacturers, obviously, right? If you only want Tesla parts, then they can charge more. This monopoly would lead to inelastic demand, drastically drive up prices. Aftermarket parts are most often better than OEM parts because they are newer and thus more efficient. There is a much greater selection. So, and there have been course cases, people suing because the insurer didn't want to provide OEM. So Berry versus State Farm, the Texas Department of Insurance does not believe in forcing insurers to provide OEM parts, nor allowing the insurer to specify the type of parts the consumer has to choose in replacement. The Texas Department of Insurance stated that the use of aftermarkets is actually benefits the consumer by saving them millions of dollars each year in lower insurance premiums. But yeah, there's been case law that has challenged this. I don't really care. I don't ask. I just take my car in and they do whatever they do. I probably should say, you know, could you save me some money here? But I just like, you know, I'm so anti-mechanical that they can just have their way with me. So a couple of y'all did electric cars. This was a challenging paper because y'all really struggled with coming up with much. It's tough. The main thing is electric cars are more expensive, at least today's, so they're going to be more expensive to insure. So an EV owner might pay a little more to their e-mobile to the insurer. The reason is because EV generally costs more to repair. On average, EV models cost 15% more to insure. The EV models that had corresponding combustion models, 60, 70, for 40% higher premiums. So it is material. You know, the battery is the big thing. So you get it totaled, the battery is the big thing you have to replace. If the battery to EV must be replaced, the result in a total loss in many cases. The low average age of the vehicle and their owners can only go to specialist branded repair shops. So that is an issue. The batteries in EVs are massive. They take up a lot of space. They're very expensive, a few $1,000s. That is the biggest reason why EVs cost more. Without that, EVs are actually cheaper and easier to maintain because they don't have as many parts. Have y'all seen these videos of people, you know, stealing the what's it called? What's the thing? Catalytic converters. I mean, it's just ridiculous what they're doing, and it's costing people thousands of dollars. I don't think EVs have catalytic converters. So, you know, that's the thing being stolen out. So that, you know, if we can get the battery costs down dramatically, EVs are going to be cheaper and easier. So at that point, they'll probably be cheaper to insure as well. Development of EV increased connectivity and reliance on data, sensors, and software. I don't know why EVs make software and all this technology better. I don't know if there's something advantage. They're including artificial intelligence to manage vehicle systems as well as aid driving. The rising of software will come with more cyber vulnerabilities, including the threat of malicious attacks, system outages. I don't know why EVs are better for software. I didn't quite understood that. With electric vehicle requires less maintenance when compared to their predecessors. The average cost for repair are significantly higher. So frequency is lower, the average cost is higher, mainly because probably of the battery. A Tesla Model 3 owner can expect to pay anywhere to $12,000 to $14,000 for the battery. If an EV's electrical components catch fire, so that's the other thing is fire. So they did find something else to talk about. Well, electric car more likely to catch on fire than a gas car, possibly. Now I remember one time getting gasoline and I had my phone and all my friends were like, what are you doing with your phone? Your phone's going to catch fire with the gasoline. I don't know if that's an issue with electric cars with phones. So gas cars can catch fire just as well. So resulting in not just your car catching on fire, but your whole house can catch on fire. I don't know what the frequency of that is. I don't think it's that great, but I guess it's possible. What can hackers do to electric vehicles that they can't do with gas cars? What kind of damages would come out of large scale attack? Just how susceptible are electric vehicles to cyber attacks. So again, I don't know why that's different than with a gas car. I mean, gas cars have internet access. I mean, have, you know, access to these kind of, you know, so I'm not so sure. I don't understand the technology there. Gig economy, I think this is a huge one. Buckle is hiring UTSA students. They hired 3 of them so far that I know of. I actually know the CEO of Buckle because she was the previous CEO of USA Life Insurance Company and USA CFO, and now she's at Buckle. I was on a call with them. It was pretty fun. I think I told my other classes, it was pretty hilarious. I'm on a call with them. They wanted me to talk about this competition one of our students was in, and I didn't realize it was the entire company on the call. They didn't tell me that. I thought it was just going to be me talking to her, but she introduced me as USA's chief economist. I was like, wow, I didn't know I was, you know, I played that role. I had that kind of quasi title, but she said that's how she remembered me. I thought that was kind of funny. But anyway, so we do have a connection there. They do love UTSA students. They just hired Bob Wickwire, and they hired another lady. I can't remember her name. I need to email her and see how she's doing, but they loved her. She's doing a great job there. So it's a company that insures the gig economy. And so I actually told them on the call, yeah, I did talk about Buckle in here, didn't I, previously? And I said, yeah, I've talked about Buckle. I think I showed them your website, and that this is a serious problem of how do you insure the new gig economy. Buckle is a new insurance company. It's popped up by their own policies, are designed to cover drivers for rideshare and delivery services. Lyft and Uber also offer insurance through their app to workers, but Buckle's trying to solve the problem these others are not solving. If the driver does not currently have the app on and is not working, then there is no coverage, and they have to rely on their own insurance. Periods of coverage are split into 3 different types. Period 1 is when the driver has the app on, is currently working, and is waiting for a request for a customer. During this time, personal auto insurance does not offer any coverage, and rideshare insurance only covers limited. So the app is on, you're working, but you don't have a passenger. Period 2 is when a driver is en route to pick up. Policy offers for coverage. Period 3 is when you have a passenger or goods, so it's also covering the DoorDash type of thing, offers full coverage. Boy, there's some incredible dash cam of Uber drivers. There's some really horrible people in this world that are taking Uber rides that are just, I mean, it's pretty amazing where they're throwing drinks on them. And part of it is, you know, we want Uber and Lyft to pick up drunks, right? That's what we want them to do. But these are horrible people. Some people are really horrible when they're drunk. I've never been drunk in my life, so I don't know what kind of person I would be drunk. I'm sure I'd be one of the happy drunks. But some drunks are mad and mean, and you know, these poor drivers. I don't know if you saw the video of the guy that was killed. Uber driver was killed. Two women hijacked his car, and he tried to catch him, and he was hanging on, and he took a corner and essentially killed him on the corner pretty seriously. Said, you know, his whole family was just devastated by it. And at the end of the call, one of the ladies in the car, she was upset because she couldn't find her cell phone. They just killed this guy, but she couldn't find her cell phone. So it's kind of a sad story. So yeah, Uber drivers, they're picking up strangers all day long. How do you insure something like that? It's a very different type of liability. What is that liability? What is Buckle discovering with that type of liability? Are you picking up a new risk because you're putting people in your car who could be dangerous?
They love like carry guns.
What? Sorry, what?
They love carry guns.
Oh, I don't know what Uber's rules are. You know, if I were one, I would probably be carrying at least mace or something.
Uber prohibits riders and their guests, as well as the driver and delivery partners, from carrying firearms of any kind while using the app.
While using the app. Well, what about mace?
I don't know, traditionally mace is not considered a firearm.
Yeah.
Dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
When you're driving.
Yeah, you're in close to parking.
Yes, complete stranger. You know, I've used Lyft and Uber. I've never had a bad driver. I love them. They're so much more fun than taxi drivers. Some of them are like one, I got home and I'd been out of the country and he updated me on the entire week on the stock market. And he didn't even know what my career was. He was just like telling me what the Fed had done and all that. It's like, oh, this is perfect. So they're really wonderful, sweet people. The lady to pick me up in Hawaii, boy, she was so nice. It's like I gave her a big tip. She was just so friendly. And so, yeah, I didn't get that experience. You know, in New York, I use taxi drivers. I mean, boy, they can be really quite rude. So, I mean, I like it, but it is a very different world, a very different type of liability. There have been some reports of Uber drivers doing bad things. I think the bigger issue is the person who's not an Uber driver, who sees someone who looks like they're waiting for an Uber and pretends to be an Uber driver and does something. You've seen some of those stories. And that's when you make sure you know your Uber driver's name and you double check that. You don't say, are you so-and-so? Say, what is your name? And you double check that. If the driver, okay, so there's some typos. These aren't my typos, all right? So whoever wrote this paper had some typos. They probably don't want to say who they are now, but sorry. If the driver does not currently have the app on, oh, I already read that, didn't I? All right, so roundabouts. I love roundabouts. I find this really fascinating. The first time I saw a roundabout, I thought, man, this is the most dangerous thing I've ever seen in my life. Who in the right mind would do this? But the data is overwhelming. These things are much, much safer. And I try to prove that to you by showing those videos to you earlier. The first one came up in Columbus Circle. Columbus Circle, y'all know where that is, right? Right in front of Trump Tower, right there in the corner. Pretty famous. I didn't realize that was the first one. There's no sign up that says that. Have y'all been to Columbus Circle? New York City, you can rent bikes there and ride in Central Park. It's a nice little place. Or big, it's a big mall right there on the side with a really bizarre statue in the middle of it when you walk in. So the modern roundabout was developed by Frank Blackmore back in 1966. He changed the rules, the layout. So the original ones, I don't know what the Columbus Circle one, the original one was actually more dangerous. And I think if I understand this correctly, if you're coming in, you didn't yield, and the people on the roundabout yielded to you. And so now it's the people coming in have to yield. And I think that's maybe his big change. Incoming drivers trying to get inside the circle need to yield the right of way. Modern roundabouts have a slight turn before the entering. I didn't realize that. That makes a lot of sense to intentionally slow you down, which I think is the big key between that and lights. With the red light, people are just gunning it. They're actually speeding up to make the light. Modern roundabouts have a slight turn, and this causes the driver to decrease their speed. A driver unfamiliar is going to slow down and be more cautious. Drivers in a typical intersection with a traffic light will race. When they see yellow, the modern roundabout eliminated the left turn from the intersection. So it makes a lot of sense. I've become much more cautious every time I come to a signal light. I just know I'm not going until I'm sure there's no one coming the other way. Okay, Indiana, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, it's kind of interesting because when I studied abroad in England, there were a bunch of roundabouts, but the thing that was interesting was the way the traffic worked. It was like it was geared for the pedestrians, not for the cars. So when you hit the cross button, the light immediately changes. And
Oh, wow.
So it's geared for the traffic of the pedestrians, and the cars stop until it's clear.
Well, New York's interesting on pedestrians because first of all, they don't care if the walk light's on or not, they just go. But they have to wait for it to change. I don't know if in New York it would work because my word, it gets irritating. I know me riding a bike, it's really irritating because you have to stop every 20 yards or whatever, 40 yards. It gets irritating that there's so many lights, and it's the same thing with cars. So they have to try to get some flow. Otherwise, you're just stopping too much. You have to think about the energy and the pollution as well. So maybe it's not like a block system. I'm not sure with a block system that quite would work. Yeah, Mr.
Yeah, well, like in New York City, they did that at Times Square. They changed it up so that cars aren't going through anymore. It's set up entirely now for pedestrians.
Yeah, well, I know down in Ground Zero, a lot of those streets, Wall Street, aren't even streets anymore. It's all pedestrians. Now, Central Park, you got to be real careful in Central Park because they actually close all traffic off. And so I'm riding my bike like there's no traffic. I didn't realize at some point they open it back up. And so I'm riding my bike and suddenly there's like 80 cars behind me honking. I was like, oh, why? So I don't know how they warn you that, but there's sometimes like Saturdays, there's no traffic. You're just riding your bike, and there's other times So that to me is almost dangerous because if you're not familiar with the schedule. And Indiana has 102,000 population with 140 roundabouts, the city with the most roundabouts in the US. They reduced car accidents by 80%. That's how much signal lights add. I really think most serious accidents in cities are signal lights. I really do think that's the case. The roundabout help drivers save 272 tankers full. So it helps with fuel as well because you're not sitting there at the light, which really irritates me here at UTSA. I don't know why UTSA getting on 1604, we have to sit through 3 lights. Isn't that irritating? If you're going that direction, you have 1 light, 2 light, 3 lights. It'd be nice if we didn't have to do that because you're sitting there and there's no cross traffic because it's 10:30 at night. A factor you can keep in mind is a reduction in coming to a complete stop and accelerating compared to a traditional intersection. The city even saves more in the long rate by taking out the traffic lights, no longer needing to pay for electric bills. And also think about it when you have an electrical storm, the lights go out, they got to have someone go out there and fix it, so it's, there's some extra benefits. Okay, telematics, monitor customers' motoring habits. Underwriters can increasingly distinguish between drivers who are safe and those who merely seem safe on paper. That's where the credit score comes in. Some ask you to have a device in your vehicle for 6 months before they make an adjustment. Others give you an automatic discount once you install the device and adjust your rates each pay period. So that's the big question. Does the fact that you install the device change how you drive? I would think that it would. I would think I would drive more safely, but then how long does that last? So some say, yeah, you put it in your car, we'll give you a discount. Others say, we'll give you 6 months. I think route, you have to wait for a while. The firm says a third of new business comes via telematics. The hefty discount it offers to the best drivers still leaves it plenty of margin. That comes from Progressive. There's such a large insurer, which is also interesting because they started off as a substandard insurer. We talked about that before. Yeah, USA used them as their substandard insurer. They were actually trying to get good drivers and get rid of the bad drivers, which is the exact opposite. So what's the downside of this? Bad drivers need to get to work. Is it unfair that bad drivers have to take the bus? Could a bad driver become a good driver? Is that possible? Are there some people who could never become a good driver? So I showed you the worst drivers in Canada. It's amazing. They're still on. I'm still thinking there has to be some artificial in there. Some people are bad drivers just because they're just scared to death. They're really nervous. They just driving is not their thing. Or some people just are not caught out emotionally for driving. They probably should be taking a bus. All right. And now in New York City, you take the subway, what's going to happen to you? You get shot, right? So there's other risk. So New York is just a very dangerous place. I always felt really safe in New York taking this subway, but I think now I would maybe take the bus. I didn't like taking the bus because it seemed more confusing to me. But now, there was times I was on the subway and I was the only person in the car and I didn't think anything of it. I think now I'd be thinking, okay, if someone walks in this car, I'm running. I'm getting to the next car because you're in this box, in this underground. There's no one else around. There's one other person in there, and you're like, who is that person? Are they going to rob me? All right. So terrorism, got an update on this bill. With the insurance industry having a cumulative net loss of $40 billion after 9/11. Companies were skeptical and eventually opted out of including terrorism coverage in their policies. In October, the ISO asked 50 states and DC and the territories if they would exclude terrorism from all commercial insurance coverage, or if they could exclude. Commercial insurance includes insurance policies for businesses. An overwhelming 45 states all approved of the removal of terrorism coverage in commercial insurance. So there's some that still require it. Obviously, makes sense. New York, Texas is interesting. This was concerning and proved to be a problem since there were not that many resources and limited ability of terrorism coverage. So you had this Terrorism Risk Act of 2002. So Congress moved pretty fast. Big cities, and since they started asking the question, can we build high-rise buildings anymore? I don't know if y'all been to New York in a while. There is it's a new building I would never buy. Have y'all seen this thing?
So like,
It's so thin. I'd be worried the thing would just fall over. It's so thin, very, very expensive. I don't think it's this one. I think this still needs to be built, but it's this one. I mean, it really sticks out because it's really far north. So there's not much tall around it. But boy, it's just crazy, scary looking. Boy, I'd be worried about a terrorist event because it seemed like it'd be a really easy building to topple. And I have a horrible fear of heights. I thought there was a condo, y'all know that tall building on Wurzbach? They had an 18th floor condo open. I thought, maybe I want to do that. And then I thought about grocery shopping and having to go 18 floors every time I go, you know, it'd be really irritating to do that. Think about being on like the 80th floor, what that would be like. So could you even build buildings like that anymore? In a place like New York, you need to because you don't have much land. And so, you know, obviously construction industry is going to complain. Even though there is not a lot of data on attacks, data analysts and data engineers have been able to work the power laws. We talked about earlier. Power law is very important when it comes to making predictions of future attacks. The Terrorism Act was signed in 2002, a year later, so it took them a year to get it. It's called TRIA, a 3-year federal program providing $100 billion backstop for the P&C industry. It's a secondary source of funds that can be used in case the primary source does not meet the needs. This federal backup was for certain attacks, acts of terrorism, and distributes the risk of loss from foreign terrorist attacks between federal government and P&C. What's interesting is the word foreign, because we have had some homegrown terrorist attacks, and this says foreign. So, you know, it seems like there's some restrictions there. The act must have been committed by an individual or individuals acting on behalf of any foreign person or foreign interest as part of an effort to coerce civilian population in the United States or to influence the policy or, I mean, there's a lot of words in here. It sounds like you could somehow get out of almost anything. The act results in property and casualty insurance losses that exceed 5 million in aggregate. That's got to be 5 billion. I don't think that's 5 million, but no fictitious attack will be certified as an act of terrorism if the attack is done. Well, maybe it is 5 million if it's one particular building. Is done a result of a war. So we talked about that, right? When George W. Bush said war on terror, did he suddenly make a lot of insurance no longer viable? 2009 was the last year it was extended. The continuation of TRIA allows for 100 billion. So who knows if they're going to keep extending this. All right, and then the title insurance, I think, is the last one. So, all these papers essentially agree with the article I showed you. In fact, one of y'all watched the podcast of the guy who wrote that article, so he must be an expert. Title insurance barely pays out any claims. We talked about it earlier. Only 5% pay off. Before offering an insurance contract, the company must ensure the title is clean. So this is the arguments a lot of them make is, hey, we're doing more than just insuring you. We're actually going out there and doing some legwork, make sure you actually have a clean title. Ownership of the policy is clean and not in question. Advocators of this industry assert that this problem of prevention is why the 5% statistic is so low compared to other. Rather than needing to check owner, seller, lot number, and address, the industry implemented a default filing system which could categorize. So they've done some work to make it more efficient. It allows title insurance companies to perform and complete most title searches within 48 hours. And again, I was very impressed with the title company we were using. This lady was working long hours. She was emailing us at 3 a.m. I mean, she was taking her job very seriously, but it wasn't the insurance. She was doing the title search. What?
The blockchain.
Yeah, so this may be another area for blockchain. Well, there are other countries that do this, and again, I'm kind of in, maybe it's the blockchain, but once you have title, you've got title. It's your responsibility to go check on that, say every year, and make sure it's still in your name. Anytime it changes, it's got to send you some alert that this is being changed to make sure, you know, it seems like there's a way to do this such that the government says, hey, if this person's been listed as the title in this database for the last year, That's it. It is, they have title. If they didn't check it in the last year and someone stole their title, that's their problem. You know, there's ways to do this where you put the pressure on the property owner. There's an official source. They must check it once a year. So there's a way to do it so you don't need title insurance at all. And then the kickbacks, we talked about that. You know, mortgage companies, real estate brokers. Knowing most customers don't think twice about it. Most don't ask, hey, can I save some money on this? Property casualty firms are prohibited. I mean, this is the interesting thing, prohibited by law from competing in this industry. This is unfortunate as the decision allows title companies complete control price. Why is that important? You'll see here, there's very few players. One statute in California where the statute states an insurer which anywhere in the United States transacts any class of insurance other than title insurance is not eligible for the insurance of a certificate of authority to transact. Isn't that crazy? Why do we have a law that limits competition in any state, anywhere? It just doesn't make any sense. They're restricted to sell no other type of insurance within the state or elsewhere. It's true for most states. It just shows you the power. There are 4 companies. You've heard of these. First American Title. I think there's buildings here in town that have that on it. Stewart, I heard of them. Old Republic, Fidelity, 80% of the total market. The only title insurance entity authorized to do business in Iowa is Iowa Title Guarantee. Now, I'm not sure a state fund is the right way to do it, but it does save a lot of money. Iowa certifies an abstractor to do the research, the record search, and an attorney. As its defining feature, Iowa Title Guarantee requires that any issues with the title be resolved before closing. It gives $60 of the $110 to abstractors and attorneys, while nothing is given to the lender, eliminating the kickback. Most of the developed world uses a land registration system, which is what I'm talking about, in which the state keeps a definitive record of land ownership. I think the US could go to that and you don't even need title insurance. To me, if you own the property, you should be responsible for checking this registry at a certain point in time. The registry should obviously be set up to send you an email to remind you to check that anyway. And it could even be set up to send you an email and you've got to affirmatively do that, or they send you more. We got enough IT today to do this in a way that we don't need the title insurance. So I think, and it's expensive. What do they say? 1% of the property value? That's ridiculous. We're talking hundreds of dollars for something that really is not worthwhile. All right, so y'all did a good job. Interesting. I learned some stuff. We'll see what next year does. I will steal from some of your sources to bring some stuff in to talk about. So, all right. So good semester. You know what the exam's all about? It's going to be one essay question you'll submit in advance, and I'll put that out there on Blackboard, and then 2 math problems here in class. One's a crazy one, the other one's pretty straightforward. So everybody's good?
Well, the math is scheduled B and bootstrap, right?
Pricing, yeah, the pricing problem. I don't know, you said PE.
Those 3 math problems.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot about Schedule P. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Schedule P. Whatever's in the exam guide. Don't trust my memory because it's 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. So I guess 3. I don't think of that last one as a math problem. It's more of just pool numbers and it's addition and subtraction. So it's kind of a give me problem. Remember, I will ask you for the RBC ratio. Don't forget that. Okay. That's not in the example problem. So RBC ratio. So remember, multiply by 2 and divide by the adjusted. If you don't remember how to do that, go find the video that does that. If you can't find it, maybe I'll find it. Okay, so good semester. I'll see you all.
So on the syllabus, it says Tuesday at 7 p.m. That's still.
Yeah. If the room's open, I get here early. If the room's open, you can come in early and see. I've had bad luck with that in the past, but given that there's hardly any classes anymore, there's a chance it might be open at 6. So I might come for early and I'll just be grading other classes. So if the room's open, you want to get it out of the way, come in. It's not as bad as it used to be. It used to be like at 8 o'clock. 7's at least a little bit better. All right. Thanks, guys.